Yeah. Hello and welcome back to Rejuvenated Women, Impeccable Health for High Performing Women. This is episode 61, and I am excited to welcome back to the show Dr. Andrea Purcell, who is a naturopathic physician in Arizona and California. And she has been on the show before when we had a very exciting conversation around menopause that I know many of you have enjoyed. And I'm hoping today's conversation will be just as exciting. We're going to be talking about being over 35 and pregnant, which is something that Dr. Purcell has experienced herself and written a book about. And I'm excited just to talk about because it's a conversation that I feel we need to have and kind of get into this whole discussion around what the heck is geriatric pregnancy and what's really different about having a child later in life. So Dr. Purcell, welcome back to the show.
So much, Dr. Alex. I'm happy to have this conversation because I myself was a mature, which I say, instead of being geriatric pregnancy, aka old.
Right.
But I think of pregnancy really in women who are younger, up to age 34, and they're really another subset of women 35 and older who are pregnant, want to be first-time moms, and really it's a subspecialty within pregnancy. And I think a lot of times women are maybe not properly there or high. There's a lot of in that because we need to be more upfront with some of the risks with women over 35.
Absolutely. And, so in the other hat I wear, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, I'm a perinatal chiropractor. And so I see a lot of pregnant moms and babies in that side of my practice. But I think on both, like just physically and in terms of our hormones and in terms of our life scenario, like I'm 36 right now. I had a kid when I was 28. And I think about having a baby right now, and it's kind of overwhelming because it feels really different, 8 years later. And so I'd love to dive in. Like, what are some of the things that either, maybe we can start with you sharing your story. Like, what was it like being a mature, how did you phrase it? Mature pregnancy?
Mature mama.
Mature mama. Yes. I love that. Love that term.
Well, I'm happy to share my story, and I want to because I really want to connect with other people who are watching and let you know, if you're over 35 right now and you're pregnant, that you're not alone. And a lot of what you're going through is your story, but you need to relate to other people who went through it. And really, part of me writing this book was my own processing of it, and I take women through week by week of what it's like. But I think the biggest risks associated with being 35 and over are one, we've lived on planet Earth for 3, maybe 4 decades. And if we haven't taken really great care of our health, which what does that even mean? Because we're not taught that in schools, how to take care of ourselves, then we could be having some pre-existing conditions that set us up for higher risks during pregnancy. Okay. Also, we have been on planet Earth, which is a beautiful place, but it's also a polluted place. And so what that means is that we've accumulated toxins over our 3 or 4 decades on planet Earth, which then can affect our developing fetus, right? So that's what makes us high risk. Also, statistics will say, okay, women over 5 have a higher risk of having a child with Down syndrome. Women over 35 have a greater chance of having multiple births, which puts you in high risk, right? So if you're carrying twins as opposed to one baby. An increased chance of prolonged labor. Well, why is that? Well, because we become more rigid with age and tighter and more tense. We're less buoyant and flexible and bouncy. Yourself, you're saying, hey, I had my child when I was, I think you said 26 or something, right? As compared to being maybe 36, right? So the tissues change, our bodies change, so that it increases the rate, of prolonged labor, which then causes more stress to the baby. And then women end up having more C-sections when they're older. So it's all of these things that go into, you're 35, you're high risk, or you're advanced maternal age. And for me, I got pregnant at 39 and delivered right before I turned 40. So this is a very real walk for me. And the first thing that I recognized as my body was changing was that when I went to my OB, she was concerned with the baby. She was not concerned with me. She was not concerned with my symptoms, how I felt, the fact that I, was, a business owner myself, and I had patients that I had to see, and I was running a business. Like none of that mattered. Oh, you're constipated, you have heartburn, you can't sleep, like your feet are swollen, too bad. Like all I'm concerned about is this baby. So I knew I had to reach out and get some additional help. And I'm so glad that you're certified. We were talking about in Webster Chiropractic, which is something that helped me during my pregnancy. So I think the message for women who are older saying, hey, you need to get a village and you need to help yourself get a village to really take good care of yourself during the pregnancy. So all the wheels just don't fall off the bus, and you become riddled with so much fear as a result of the conventional medical system pushing many extra tests and precautions and genetic testing and things on you. It's important to have that village. And I'm happy to talk about, well, what does it mean to have a village?
Yeah. No, I think that would be a great conversation, because even those who, maybe you don't fall into this category of being over 35, like when I was pregnant, I also felt just the effect, and maybe it's because we function, you and I are both in more of the natural medicine world, but a lot of Western medicine is so fear driven. And so I think there's a lot that psychologically can just seem overwhelming. So let's talk about like what would that village include?
Yeah. And
Who's in our village?
in my village, I had my conventional OB. Okay. Right. So, and what that means is medical doctor, hospital privileges, like the standard prenatal visits, all of that. Then I had my nurse midwife. Right. So my nurse midwife functioned more like holistic. Okay, this is what we could do to alleviate your heartburn. Okay, this is happening. She referred me to the Webster chiropractor. Right. So now that's three people on my team. So I have my OB, I have my nurse midwife, and then the chiropractor who helped me. Right. So
Right.
because you help women with this all the time. So back pain, pelvic pain, pubic bone pain, hip pain, like all of like your whole pelvic area is shifting. And in order to walk, which is important to do, right? In order to go to work, sit, get up off the floor. If you have other small kids, like this is important for just movement. Also, you want to move during pregnancy because it gives you a better chance of having a natural delivery, as opposed to just being stuck and rigid and bedridden because your hips are out or something like that. So those are the three. Then I had my doula, who was my birth when I went into labor. And then, this journey, I like to divide it into three parts. It's the pregnancy journey, it's the delivery journey, and then it's the breastfeeding, the post, journey. And you really have to prepare for kind of like 3 marathons back to back. So who's your team going to be after you deliver? And your team then needs to consist of your placenta encapsulation person, because I'm a firm believer in placenta encapsulation, helping with postpartum depression and preventing it. So that's one. And also some of the nutrient deficiencies that ensue if there's a lot of blood loss, like rebuilding the iron super quick. And then, of course, your lactation specialist, who needs to be on speed dial if you plan on breastfeeding.
Yeah. So many moms, even though even if you've had multiple kids, breastfeeding can be, and that's the number one thing I tend to see families with postpartum is in that 4th trimester, is latching issues. And so I adjust, and we're kind of talking about my other hats on the show today with that's cool. I like that. So I adjust pregnant moms and then babies and mom after baby's born, but it can be such a frustration, and it's a learning process, and I think a lot of us don't realize that. We just want it to work right away.
Yeah, we're just like, hey, God gave, like, they're going to feed my child, they're going to work, and
Yeah.
they work, but there's a balance between them. And I think just kind of preparing for that time, so you're caught with a starving screaming baby at the 11th hour on a Saturday night and just feeling like you're in it. So just setting yourself up for success and having those people on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. So I totally relate to creating that team as well, like at any stage, but definitely in your more mature years, we shall say. Um, this is an interesting question just because this past year has made a lot of changes to like who's allowed to be at births and what resources you can have and all of that. Do you have any suggestions, like if someone's pregnant right now and maybe only their spouse can be there, like any thoughts, or have you come across anybody that has a workaround for?
You mean, so one of the things to do is if you can find an OB that also has nurse midwives that work at office so that they have hospital privileges just like your OB. So then the nurse midwife would be able to have hospital access and eat you at the hospital
Mm,
before even the OB to be there. So that option. Also, I have heard of other women putting their doulas really just like on their iPad, where their doula is
yeah,
walking them through the birth process, even though they're not physically in the room with them. And we just have to ask for a little bit more support from the spouse to kind of coordinate that. Who is
absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, those were both my ideas. I just wondered if you had any any additional ones because it has, a lot's changed, like just between the normal stuff that is normally part of birth, and now we add in this layer of everything that's happened with the pandemic, and it can be different for a lot of
Mhm.
people. What I guess recommendations or what things do you suggest just to help stay as healthy as possible during pregnancy? You know,
Let's talk about pre-pregnancy because I think it
yeah,
starts there, right? So it
absolutely.
takes a healthy egg 120 days to fully form and develop, right? So the statistics in the U.S. are a little wonky. I think it's 51% of people get pregnant, and then because they're really not trying and then they're pregnant and it's a surprise and then they start taking prenatal vitamins. But
Right.
as we get older and we become more aware, there's a level of patience that comes with age, and there's also a level of body awareness and knowledge that comes with age, right? And so if you're waited all this time to be almost between 35 and 40 to get pregnant, then there's been a reason, right? And so you most likely are consciously going into this at this point. You're making a choice. And so what I tell women is, if you're 35 and over and you want to become a mom, the first thing to do is let's start. If you are carrying excess weight, let's try to get it down. Try to lose about 10% of your, excess weight of your body weight. Bring it down so that you're feeling better in your body, you're feeling lighter, and then start working on doing some type of detox or cleanse. I'm not talking about a water fast or a juice fast, but I'm talking about a healthy 3-week detox or something where you can start liberating and freeing up your own body's ability to heal, reducing inflammation, clearing out the organs of elimination, and just preparing. You want to think about your body like a garden where you're tilling the soil and you're preparing the soil to plant a really healthy egg that's been fertilized and grow egg into your new family member. And so just starting with the detox, you don't want to be detoxing. If you're already trying to get pregnant, you don't want to be detoxing because that's not healthy either. Because then we talk about liberating toxins into the bloodstream that now this brand new fertilized egg is having to deal with. So you really have to consciously go about it. By one, if I'm carrying excess weight, I want to get it down. I do want to do a detox to make my garden soil healthy as possible. And then after the detox, you commit to eating at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. Juicing are super good because of the micronutrients that they provide at the cellular level. And so, if I'm in a green juice every day, I say go and do that. You want to start your prenatals really three to 6 months before you start trying to get pregnant. Because again, it takes 120 days for that healthy egg to form, and you want to have all the building blocks on board so that everything works the way it should. And what I mean by building blocks, it's kind of like when you're baking a cake and you put flour in and sugar in and you add the baking soda. Well, those prenatals are the building blocks for making sure you have proper eye formation and brain formation in your soon to be developing fetus, right? So all of that's extremely important. And I think that sets you up, because the truth is, I mean, when I got pregnant, I could not eat a vegetable for the whole first trimester. So don't wait to lose weight till you get pregnant. Don't wait to think you're going to get healthy when, like all bets are off. Like I canceled my gym membership, like nothing worked anymore. So that is not the time. That is the time to kind of hunker down and say, I'm growing this baby.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can say, from my own experience, like I was super healthy. I was one of those who got pregnant without meaning to, right? Like it was actually, I had my period on my wedding day and just didn't get it again. Like we had a honeymoon baby, but I got incredibly sick during my pregnancy, and stress had a lot to do with that. But like I couldn't eat meat. A lot of the things that I loved were just not fun anymore, and I lost weight, but it was unhealthy weight loss because I was pregnant and should have been gaining weight. And so I think all of this is relevant because we need to be as healthy as possible going into pregnancy, because you just don't know. Like you could be growing up the whole time, like you just don't know. So I think that's all really great information. And I would add, I've worked with a few pregnant moms on more of the like nutritional side and kind of healing body. And we don't detox, but a lot of times even if you're pregnant and listening to this, it's not too late to start. Like don't do a detox, but you can start by just cleaning up your diet and doing some of those things. And so I've had some moms lose like unhealthy baby weight or unhealthy weight that it was in addition to baby while still pregnant, and have a healthier birth and all of that stuff. But ideally we're doing this beforehand. So
That would be ideal.
yeah.
And yeah, so in the book, I basically I write my story, and it's really to help you and other women along the journey just see like, hey, I'm not alone, right? This woman, she's a doctor. She went to this OB appointment, they told her this. She went to this midwife appointment, they told her that. Like to really help expand what the possibilities are for you, no matter what you're going through in your own pregnancy, and to also laugh a little, at my story, because pregnancy can be very isolating. There are certain days where you just feel like the whole world's going on around you and you're not partaking in it. And so when I was writing the book, it really just helped move through each week and each trimester of the pregnancy. And I cover everything up to the birth, and then I have an entire chapter on nursing, because nursing unto itself is like the devil's in the details with the nursing. And that's why I say absolutely get a lactation specialist. And then I cover the first year of what it's like postpartum, the first year, and all the things that women struggle with, the hair loss, the loss of sex drive, the vaginal dryness, when is my sex drive going to come back? When is it safe to have sex? And all of these things that plague couples that honestly nobody talks about. It's almost like, oh, you had your baby and, Godspeed. But there's a lot of support and just like a lot of camaraderie for you, even for anyone listening who's in that space right now, that you're not alone in that either. It's a tough year.
It is. And I almost think maybe we should talk about the village for that first year after, because I talk about the fourth trimester, which is silly, but it's really that last first year with baby, because a lot of things are different. You've got a lot of changes, whether it's your first kid or your fifth. Like there can be a lot that happens. So for you, was there support network that you created with that?
And so the nurse midwife practice that I had, they had a support group of moms that would meet And, it's tough because then it's like you're leaving your house, you're attached to your baby at the hip, so your baby's going with you and things like that. But it was definitely worth it to listen to other women who were dealing with similar things, or even maybe at another point on the journey, whether, ahead of me a little bit, where I could plan and say, gosh, yeah, that's coming now. I know what to do in that situation. So I think it is important to have um, the support, but also to recognize, hey, this is normal, right? Like, whatever I'm going through, this is normal. There's somebody else, and then being able to reach out. And that's why I write about it in that chapter, because I think there's a lot that we don't realize. We just think there's something wrong with us.
Yeah. And I think that's true of many things, but especially with pregnancy, there's a lot to be gleaned from being part of a group and just recognizing like, oh, this isn't just me and there's not something wrong with me. Like you said, this can be an experience. So just having those resources. And I'll just say, on the show, anyone who's looking for resources on how to connect, in the Alaska community can reach out to me. And I know you probably have some ideas for those
For the Phoenix
outside of here.
community,
Yeah.
yeah. And there was something else about that year that I want to talk about. Oh, I know. So one of the most glaring things that I found is much needed and is lacking is after you have your baby, you go for, I believe it's a 6-week checkup with your OB, and they just maybe they'll run blood work, maybe they won't. They kind of just check in on you and then they let you go, like you should be fine. Like, and that's kind of like where we see the pictures in Hollywood, like, wow, she's back to her beach body in 6 weeks and that's going to be, like, who does that happen to? I mean, I'm just so floored by that, because I'm sitting there at the 6-week checkup like I'm a hot mess, right? And but the importance of having also, because I'm a naturopathic doctor, of having a naturopathic doctor on your team, maybe even 3 months out, to say, okay, let's run your blood work. Okay, all your hair is falling out. This is why hair falls out postpartum, right? This is what we need to correct. Oh yeah, you're having vaginal dryness and sex is painful now. Okay, this is what we can do about it, right? Because you keep having these expectations maybe of your conventional MD and your OB, and they can't meet them because they don't have the training to really help you over those hurdles, whether it be sleep or dysfunctional sleep, or your circadian rhythm is disrupted. But all the things that can really plague a woman and hurt a marriage and interfere with your bond with your child that year can be really well addressed with a holistic practitioner. So whether it be like a functional medicine practitioner in your neighborhood, you find a naturopathic doctor to help you, but to really be a support system for you and give you help and answers. And that's who I relied on, right? So I was an older mom, and I wrote Over 35 and Pregnant as a result of my journey because I was so frustrated. But, I help women who are in perimenopause and menopause. That's my specialty. But I relied on, the other doctors that I had in my phone, or my
Right.
old Rolodex that I called and I made appointments with to help me. So we really do need to ask for help. So if you're one of those women, who's like, gosh, I don't know, yeah, you can white knuckle it, but there's also people out there that you can ask for help and then just receive the help. Motherhood it should not be walked alone.
No. And I don't think it was designed to be that way, but our modern society has created this thing like, well, I'm the mom. I'm supposed to do this 24/7, 7 days a week, all the time. And the reality is we need help too. So I love.
And if you're pregnant and you are being told something that you feel doesn't resonate with you or just doesn't feel right, you do need to trust your own intuition. And I do want to say that because my son was breech for a lot of my pregnancy, and I tried a lot of things to naturally to turn him, to have him be in the proper position, and he just wouldn't turn. There ended up being a reason why he didn't turn, but when they wanted to do some more aggressive things, my intuition told me not to. And I'm really happy that I didn't do those things and I just let it progress as it needed to. And I do have a healthy boy now who's 7.
Good.
Yeah.
That's how old mine is too, actually. He's almost 8, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really key. So I see a lot of moms in my chiropractic practice, in that first year, so postpartum, and there's a lot of isolation, and there's a lot of, questioning our own judgment, and there's a lot of just feeling like you're alone on an island and not getting the help that you need. And so it's about reaching out, accepting help, and also just trusting that your gut knows what needs to happen.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I firmly believe, we get the children that we're meant to get, and we are the perfect mothers for the children that we get, right? It's kind of like a divine contract. And so, as women, we do need to trust that inner intuition that we are here to be champions for this baby and for this fetus and for ultimately our child. So,
Yeah,
we can start exercising that sooner rather than later.
absolutely. And I'll let you jump in here, just sharing a little piece of my story, which I don't think you know. So my son, I was pregnant without wanting to be. I spent most of the first trimester like almost wishing it would end because my marriage wasn't good and I just wasn't in a good place. And thankfully it didn't, because I love my son, and I'm glad I, have that. But he actually came at 35 weeks and 3 days. And so my whole plan to have a natural birth at the birth center and all this stuff was just thrown out, with the bathwater basically. And we spent the first week in the NICU with him. And that was, one of the biggest struggles I've ever been through. And I'm sharing this because we don't know, how things are going to go. We can plan and plan and plan and plan, and you know, it can be a challenge. Like, I've been following a friend of mine. I don't think she's quite 35, but she's like 42 weeks, and they don't let you go past 42 weeks up here in Alaska. And so they're pushing her to be induced today. And it's just been this psychological battle for her to, let go of what her plans were for having this baby. And ultimately, it's about our baby coming into the world, and, everything is great, but there can be things that happen. So I guess from your experience, what things would you share? Like, I had to do a lot of inner work to just like be okay with whatever happened. Like, what suggestions do you have for moms listening that are in that
Yeah. I also
demographic?
had to do a lot of inner work because, as I said, my son was breech, and um, every natural possible thing we tried, and he did not turn. And so I had to come to grips with the fact that I was not going to have a home birth, and that my birth plan was most likely not going to go the way I intended it to go,
Right.
right? Or that my dream that I had for, having, our family come together as a unit of 3. And so I agonized over it. I decided to not opt for the external version, which is where they, induce you with a medication and try to turn the baby. And, and I had to let go of a lot of that. But at the end of the day, right? So we never know what's going to happen in pregnancy at the 11th hour, right? And it's kind of like all bets are off. So at some point, especially if you're a person who likes to be in control, which I want to say a lot of older moms are, because a lot of us, are successful. We've run businesses, we've run our life, and we just feel like keep running it. But the baby does take over, right? It
Yeah.
takes over your body, and you're no longer in control. So you just have to kind of let it go and offer it up and trust that, you've made the best decisions, and you just have to let it take its course. So I ended up having a C-section. I mean, I did go into labor. I wasn't induced or, let them talk to, sketch. And so my son did choose his own birthday, and I went into labor, but then I knew that we had to do a C-section, and I was fine with it. And the most important thing is a healthy mom and a healthy baby,
Yeah.
because as we saw earlier, it's really like 3 marathons back. It's the pregnancy, it's the delivery, and then it's the lactation. You get yourself so worked up in delivery and so stressed out that you make yourself sick or you get a fever or something, you're not going to be there to really buck up
Yeah.
for the milk to come in and then to be feeding your baby. So then you're going to be on the formula cycle and then you're going to be down on yourself for that. So I think, just really just saying, okay, pick your battles.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's great advice. So, where can people find your book?
Amazon, over 35 and pregnant, Andrea Purcell. Yeah.
Perfect. And I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But any last words you want to share with women listening?
It's a journey. Just get ready for the ride of your life. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, Dr. Purcell, thank you so much for joining us again. As always, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Of course, you're welcome, and just many blessings to you, Dr. Alex, and all the mature mamas listening today.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.